Hello everyone, Ains here from Season Gaming, and today we have yet another unboxing for you. We are going to be looking at the Duke. This is the Hyperkin version of the original Xbox controller that has just been released. I know some people are still waiting to get their hands on theirs. We're going to be kind of opening this and talking about it, taking a good look at it and how it compares. As you can see behind me, I was a very big fan of the original Xbox. I was there on day one. I was a beta tester for Live, and I've kept almost everything I've had along the way. So before we dive into unboxing the Duke, I wanted to quickly talk a little history about why Xbox fans are finding this re-release of this classic, funny-looking controller to be so special. So let me slide this aside and show you this. This is my original Duke, or Fatty, or Xbox controller, depending on what you want to call it. Why this is special to Xbox fans very quickly is the fact that the Xbox was obviously the first Microsoft console. It was new at the time, it was something different, and it created a whole generation of fans who loved playing Halo, and you're looking at one of them. So there are a lot of fond memories that despite this controller being enormous, not having the best thumbsticks, having some awkward buttons, and just some other things about it. It is just one of those nostalgic things that is remembered very, very fondly. And while, I don't play with this when I play on my original Xbox, I play with the S, which I'll talk about in a moment. When I saw that Hyperkin and Seamus Blackley and Phil Spencer had approved this kind of new model just to pay homage to the classic, I had to pick one up. So, why is this controller so big? Many people don't really know. So when this was being originally designed, Microsoft, Seamus Blackley, the group that was designing the Xbox at the time, had a model. They really liked the Dreamcast controller, the Sega Dreamcast from 1999, for a couple of reasons. One, they kind of liked the layout of it, and they liked the fact that you could put a portable save unit in it, which, if you remember on the Dreamcast, you could have that little Tamagotchi game. And so these ports were added up top here as a requirement in the design, as was the Xbox logo. It wanted, rumble trigger, or not rumble triggers, excuse me, vibration, the additional black and white buttons here. And what happened was Microsoft let a third-party vendor make the circuit boards for this controller. And so what happened is that vendor could not make the circuit boards with the technology small enough to make it smaller than the board in this controller. And so the controller had to be designed around it, thus equaling the huge size that you see here. As I said, there are quite a few faults with it, in my opinion. Obviously, it's huge. It's big to hold. The buttons are very close together, which caused some awkwardness originally. They are also, you can't really see it up close here, but if you're familiar with the controller, also round. And so what that means is, nowadays you're used to kind of the flat buttons, and so when you press them hundreds and thousands of times over and over again, you're fine. But because these are round, they create a pressure point. And so if you were playing Halo all day like we used to, and you were hitting these buttons, it would actually start to hurt your fingers, which was kind of funny if you think about it. This was only in production a short time. It got a ton of negative feedback. Seamus Blackley has been outspoken on this and said that even at some conferences when they were debuting the Xbox hardware, he actually had things thrown at him, especially with the Japanese audiences who found this to be ridiculous. So by 2002, Microsoft had redesigned the controller to the Xbox Controller S, which is the one you see here. And this controller very, very quickly took over as the standard Xbox controller. It replaced all of the bundles in 2002 in the US, by 2003 across Europe. And this was a much more beloved controller. It's much more ergonomic. The thumbsticks are better. The button placement is better. The design of the buttons themselves is better. And so it's just a lot more functional. And, everyone I know who quickly switched to one of these when it came out. So, why was this brought back then? Xbox fans, like I said, they have an affinity for the original controller, and it just happened to be a funny conversation that Seamus Blackley started with Phil Spencer about bringing it back. Phil Spencer, being the kind of gamer and person he is at the head of Xbox, approved it, and they then worked with Hyperkin, a third-party peripheral developer to create it. And the really neat thing about this is on the original Duke, this Xbox logo is really nothing but paper. This is a piece of plastic and there's paper underneath with the Xbox logo. It's just wasted space. On this new Hyperkin controller, Hyperkin Duke, this is actually an OLED screen that plays the original Xbox boot up animation, which is remembered fondly as well. They also did some other things like added some triggers, bumpers on the back, along with the, having the standard black and white buttons. So why don't I go ahead and cut this thing open and we'll see how it compares to the original. So right away, you can see some cool packaging here. There's a card that gives a very special thank you to probably, some of the group who helped bring this back, include Seamus Blackley, Phil Spencer, like I said, along with Aaron Greenberg, who's the president of marketing for Xbox, and several other names there, so that's really neat. Little quick start guide I don't think we're going to need. So let's get our hands on this thing. So very, very simple. Looks like a detachable cord. As you can see here, as I was saying in the original Duke design, it could hold two portable memory cartridges, if you will, that allows you to take your saves, to other Xboxes despite it having a hard drive at the time. The first console to have a hard drive, actually. So, first things first, how does this feel in comparison to the original Duke? And I gotta say, it feels almost identical. So if you put these side by side, you can see they did a near one-to-one job of replicating the Duke, which is really neat. They did, as I said, added these unique bumpers here, as you can see on the corners, there and there. Simply to try and recreate, the bumpers on the modern controller, the Xbox One functionality that you've gotten used to. I don't know how many people are going to be using this as their regular controller on the Xbox One. As I said, it's more of a nostalgia play. But it is kind of neat that they did add that, and at least you can get the functionality if you need it. Let's take this plastic off. And let's go ahead and plug this in. My Xbox is not in front of me here, but you can use this with Windows 10 PCs as well, as with most things Xbox related nowadays. And so I will plug this in and we can check out the boot up animation. Has a nice long cord, looks to be 8 or 9 feet, I believe, if I remember correctly. The original Xbox controller, one thing I'm noticing this does not have is had something very unique on it at the end, if you recall. When you plug this into your original Xbox, it had this separator here, which if a pet walked across or a kid or anything yanked on the controller, it would actually break apart. This would stay in your console and your controller would be fine, so it wouldn't yank your console off of the wherever you had it placed. I don't see that here, which is just that's not really a big deal nowadays, but it was worth mentioning, I feel. All right, let me plug this in. And you can see the boot up animation. That is very, very neat. So some people aren't aware, and this is another just kind of fun fact for you. I know hardcore Xbox guys will know this, but the original boot up animation on the Xbox is actually just code. So when you turned on the original Xbox, the hard drive along with all of the chips actually had to warm up. There was a boot sequence for them. And so as soon as you turn on the Xbox, when it did the old sequence here, it was nothing but an algorithm. And so it's actually unique every time you turn it on. It's not like a video or anything like that. So just a little fun fact, and it's really neat that they recreated that for this. So as you can see, the Xbox logo itself is a little smaller than the original Duke, but obviously much sharper because it's a screen instead of a piece of paper. Overall, that is pretty much the new Hyperkin Duke. It feels good. It feels quality. The thumbstick movement is, this is my original Duke from 2001, so it's seen a lot of wear, and it's a little kind of clunky nowadays. But this feels good. This feels just like you would expect any modern controller. Definitely as good as your standard Xbox or PS4 controller, I would say. The buttons are very similar. I obviously have not played a game with it, but I will be likely plugging this in to play some Halo Combat Evolved this evening, just as a nostalgia play again. For those who do want to plug a headset and actually use this controller, it does have a 3.5mm port here. It does not, however, support the original Xbox One chat headset that has the larger plug with the volume controls on it, so just be aware of that. But there you have it. So, Hyperkin Duke, they are available at GameStop and Microsoft stores. They were, kind of becoming hard to get a hold of. I know Bert from Season Gaming, who I do most of my videos with, he is still waiting on his from the Microsoft store, and I know other people who ordered it from GameStop are, waiting on theirs as well. So I don't really know what happened. Maybe production was a little slow, but otherwise, if you have any questions, obviously just reach out in the comments. I'm happy to answer anything. As always, thank you for tuning in to Season Gaming.